Luffy has come face to face with the shame of Elbaf, and throughout this chapter, we get the chance to witness these colossal personalities clashing.
And we also get closer to a number of huge reunions, but we won't spoil it all right away, and instead jump right into chapter 1131 of One Piece.
And like we usually do, we're going to start with the cover series. And similar to what we had predicted, Yamato can no longer waste her time just wandering around Wano, hanging out with friends, and in this installment, she is accompanied by Tama, Komochio, that dog companion, and Speed, the horse smile user that Tama tamed using her fruit, as they're in active pursuit of this sword thief.
Yeah, and things are clearly going to come to a head very soon. I think it's very likely that the thief is either going to lead them into a direct trap, or at the very least, right into the den of whoever is causing all these crimes.
Yeah, it definitely seems like we're moving along much quicker in that series, and I don't know if that means it's going to wrap up, because she still needs to take the sword to the shrine, but we're at least going to get more action, I imagine, in the next few installments. But let's turn our attention to the actual chapter, and we'll start with the title, being Loki of the Realm of the Dead, which is kind of an awesome title, not gonna lie. Yeah. But if we are staying true to Norse mythology, which it seems is the heavy influence in this arc so far, we can assume that this might be a reference to Helheim, which is a realm of the dead within the deepest, darkest reaches of Niflheim, which is the dark, like the very lowest region of the different 9 realms of Yggdrasil.
Yeah, so if this realm is truly meant to house the most evil of souls, then Loki being in the deepest pits within it really isn't helping his case that he could be a redeemable character, and seems to speak to the fact that he is in fact a very evil individual.
So before we even get into the chapter, we already are getting clues as to what the true personality of the accursed prince might be like, and we don't waste a whole lot of time getting into it either, as we start on page 1 with Luffy just unable to contain his excitement now that he has that verbal confirmation. Yes, this is Elbaf, this is the birthplace of war.
Yep, Usopp already had it, a chapter ago, but now Luffy gets that real confirmation from a real giant that yes, you are here, you made it.
And it's so exciting to him that he just starts spewing off. Like, he pays no mind to any of the interjections that Loki tries to talk with him about, because he's just thinking about, like, oh, I'm here, everything's so giant, I wonder if Usopp knows about this. Like, we were on the giant ship and it was cool, but now we're here.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm impressed that it took Loki as long as he did to get pissed off, because Luffy would not shut up, and he just kept being, you don't say, cool for you, now, hey, let me speak. And finally, it drives him too far, and he can't do it anymore. He just screams, let me speak, and sends out a bellowing scream that goes throughout the entire woods and causes all the creatures to halt in their tracks.
And after commanding this presence, Loki even doubles down on his statement from before, calling himself the sun god of this land of legends, and demanding silence unless he is directly addressing Luffy next time. But then he kind of just asked Luffy, almost kind of trying to appeal to him as a person with a big heart, being like, so what do you think about my predicament you see here?
Yeah, and clearly he's got his ulterior motives that we're going to learn more about. But before we can even get to Luffy's response, we also get a note that Loki has a special government bounty of 2.6 billion berries. So it really makes you wonder, what does the government even know about him at this point?
Yeah, I'm not so sure he would have ever left the island all that much, because it's not as though it seems he was a part of like any of the giant warrior pirate training that we saw Hajrudin going through when he was a kid. But maybe they just like learned he killed the king, or he got the fruit, and they were like, oh, okay, he's serious now, we gotta give him a bounty.
Just like knowing who he is if anyone ever comes across him. 2.6, there it is.
However, on page 3, Luffy isn't so dense that he can't observe that this man was imprisoned, and likely for good reason. But that doesn't stop Loki from really trying to appeal to his empathy by telling him that not only was I arrested for a difference in like ideals or what we believed, but they wanted to sweep me under the rug, and I've been forgotten here for 6 years. So he's just been chained up. Unless people are bringing him food, he has been sitting here wasting away for 6 years.
Yeah, and I really think it's funny how he interprets himself being the pride of Elbaf and the pinnacle of strength, and only being restrained by the sea stone to this treasure tree Adam.
Which, as he says that, it is kind of confirming a long-time suspicion fans have had. When Frankie talked about buying the wood from the Atom Tree, he talked about the land where there was always war going on, and no matter what, they could come back to this one tree to rebuild it. So now, knowing that, we do have confirmation that the Sunny is built from the same tree that Idrisel itself is, which is really cool.
Yeah, no, it is really cool, and I wonder if they'll even get anything out of that with the Giants now getting to see the ship and what it's, they came from their tree, if that'll have any, later meaning in the story.
Possibly. I'm excited to see Frankie, seeing the tree up close and personal for that first time and being like, wow, I got so much wood out of this, and it's not even a tiny morsel of this entire thing.
One single piece of bark just cracked off.
Pretty much. But after he's given his sad story, he's pleaded his case, he then tries to appeal to Loppy, as some translations put it. I saw another one where it was Rory, so definitely wrong, and Luffy wastes no time in correcting that.
Yeah, and I just want to say, a side note, I love that I think this is the first character, and of course it'd be another Sun God character, that gets Luffy's name wrong instead of Luffy, who continuously gets new characters' names wrong when he first meets them.
Luffy just names people what he wants to name them, pretty much.
Yeah, it's just a basic feature of them, or the closest sounding regular thing to their name.
Mm-hmm. I love Split Head for Foxy still to this day. But he asks to make a deal, as he knows that Luffy's a pirate, and understanding a pirate's ambition, he offers that he can essentially annihilate any rival crew of Luffy's choice if he would only go get the key to his shackles, which is in the nearby village.
Yeah, and, for most pirates, this would work out. It's just that Luffy's very different. And he then quickly changes his tone when speaking to him, and goes from begging for Luffy's help to demanding it, even though he notes that he can't force him to help him.
Yeah, he is choice with his words, though. He says, I can't force you myself, but he doesn't need to do so himself, as he starts talking about the rest of this realm being inhabited by criminals and other condemned souls. And as he starts talking about this, you can see Luffy's eye when he usually gets that observation hockey glow, just looking towards the woods to see what's to come out.
And he tells the tale of this realm, filled with bones of all kinds, created by the beasts that have inhabited this realm for thousands of years, called the First World.
And as he's talking about all the devastation and death that's occurred here, we see what looks like just a giant Yeti hand grab a tree and essentially crush it to dust, pushing it between its own two hands. You see another snake biting into a mountain and just turning it into rubble. These are definitely way more intimidating beasts than Road's different companions.
Yeah, and much more comparable to some of the beasts of even actual Norse mythology lore that would follow Loki, as we also see a full array from a giant ape, snake, mammoth, polar bear, and wolf that's kind of similar to Yamato's devil fruit form, as well as a group of humans in masks accompanying them.
And as a sort of cool callback, Luffy immediately stares down this collection of beasts and just calls it nostalgic. He can't help but think back to his 2 years training on Ruskaina, right next to Amazon Lily, where he was just wailing on different forest animals that Rayleigh left him there with. He's literally quite trained for this perfect situation.
Yeah, but Loki doesn't really care, as he's more nostalgic with the beasts around him, and continues to tell Luffy that the only way to save yourself is to cover yourself in putrid-smelling clothes and serve as a walking corpse, revealing who the humans with these beasts actually are.
Funnily enough, that group does kind of take offense to it, and they're like, Master, why'd you have to go there? That's kind of rude. And they try to figure out, okay, so what are we supposed to do with this guy? Does he have money? Does he have anything? Should we just let him get torn apart? And before they can finish what they're saying to Loki, they also address, oh, by the way, we're sorry we fainted earlier. We didn't expect to run into red-haired Shanks.
Yeah, and of course, immediately upon hearing that, Luffy doesn't care about anything else. He perks right up and gives all attention to Loki and his followers about, wait, Shanks is here? Where is he? What's he doing here? Is he still here?
And as he says this, they finally notice what he's been doing as they were having their own conversation, because he's just sitting in the open palm of that giant monkey beast. He's just tamed all of them immediately, either with his Conqueror's Haki, putting them at his own will, or
just of all things, baby!
Yeah, or just his natural connection to all these animals. But they're completely shocked. Loki and his followers initially can't help but be shocked, like, who is this guy? But Luffy still only cares about Shanks. He's like, yeah, whatever, I trained your beast, but you mentioned Shanks, so about that.
Yeah, goes and calls him a coward. And, of course, Luffy isn't going to stand for that sort of disrespect to his mentor, the guy he's always looked up to, the one who gave him the straw hat. Without hesitation, launches straight into a Gear 4th attack and goes right at the imprisoned prince before anyone can act or impede him.
And Loki does demonstrate a bit of an observation, it seems like. Even in his restraint, he sees this attack coming despite his bandages and everything. And he's able to move his head just to the side to dodge Luffy's fist as he just lays in and creates all this destruction in the tree right behind him. But before he can continue any more attacks, Loki just kind of hits him with the classic, just kidding, it was only a joke.
I didn't mean it.
Yeah, no, it was just Josh and Doug.
Yeah,
And
I mean, it calms him down enough. On the next page, he does start to come back down out of his Gear 4th, but really lets him know that you don't joke about my mentor like that. That's no joking matter.
Yeah, Loki does try to pass this blame off to Luffy for attacking a restrained man. He's like, that's not fair, dude. You're kicking me while I'm down. But our captain is true to his word and his conviction, and he's like, no, if you say anything bad about him, I will embed you in this tree.
Talk shit, get hit.
It is, he's standing on his ground here. He's not backing down when it comes to Shanks whatsoever. But he is curious as to why his mentor would have come all the way out here. But Loki's pretty smart. He adapted quickly and he realized, oh, he cares about this guy.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give that information up for free.
Yeah, and you know that he's going to use that definitely to his advantage knowing this. But for the first time in this chapter, we finally cut away from the interaction between these two and instead check on the rest of the crew that were left on the bridge in the previous chapter. We're now about 2/3 of the way across, but suddenly the bridge has begun shaking very intensely.
And because of how gigantic this bridge is, Usopp has to bust out his binoculars just to look across the same bridge they're standing on. And he is able to detect a giant now just barreling their way across the rope bridge right towards them. And pretty quickly is able to deduce, oh, he looks like he got frayed by lightning. He looks rough. That must be the same guy we electrocuted earlier. And now he's heading right this way without that mask or any disguise on to hide himself.
Yeah, and along with Road coming down the bridge, behind him, Usopp can also see that both Gerd and Goldberg are making their way behind him, chasing down Road while also holding the Sunny in their hand.
And just for reference, because I feel like with where we are, everything gigantic seems dwarfed anyway. Just as a reminder, the Sunny is about 183 feet tall. It's 130 feet long. It's the size of a galleon. And those ships typically weigh anywhere between 500 to 1,000 tons.
Especially if it's made out of that atom tree.
So he is just chasing another giant, carrying this whole galleon on his shoulders. And seeing what they have in their hands, Zoro doesn't waste a whole lot of time saying, oh, they have our ride. I gotta get ready to cut down these gigantic, colossal beings.
Yeah, and not very surprising for him, just very headstrong, but luckily Usopp is a lot more in tune, has the wherewithal to hold off and say that, hey, they might know his masters, Dory and Broggy, and also they're chasing down their previous enemy who had captured them. So instead, they just decide to book it to the end of the bridge before the giants can reach them.
But before we can see any more from that scene, we do cut away again to some other allies nearby, actually in the same realm of Elbaf, in that same realm of the dead. But for the first time we've seen this arc, and that's the rest of the new giant warrior pirates, being Hajrudin and their shipwright Stansen.
And it seems these two were on a hunt to kill a moose from the realm of the dead, just as a delicacy for the Straw Hat crew, to kind of welcome them with some grand feast. But now that they've actually slayed the beast, Stansen is actually unsure of how they'll actually be able to transport this giant hull.
He even specifically mentions, and I tried reading over the translation note in the corner so many times that it's oh, it's gonna be hard without sunstone pinders. I swear to God, I tried to think about this so hard. I have no idea what he means. I think it's just something to transport animals, but if you guys have any better idea, let us know in the comments, because I am clueless about what he's talking about.
Just giant speak.
Maybe. But Hajrudin's like, no, we're not letting our saviors down. We're going to find a way to get this moose back for them. And just as a brief reminder, because not everybody's obsessed with this story as we are, they do provide a brief flashback as to how Hajrudin became a subordinate, essentially, and one of the captains of the Straw Hat Grand Fleet.
And now, just in these couple of pages, we've seen all 5 of the major players within that crew.
Yeah, one of them that's being chased by others, but we have seen
the
all
other 4
of them.
who are here for us.
Yeah.
4 to 5 ain't bad.
And true to his word, he doesn't let his saviors down. As the 2 of them alone just hoist this beast onto their shoulders, they start singing their own jingle, heading back into the village to try and prepare this for their saviors.
And as they set off, we again jump to find the rest of our crew, the last group left. And we see the remainder of the Straw Hats and the allies still on the Great Air in mid-conversation as Brooke very nervously asks if Robin likes the haircut which he had just provided her, as he's not used to cutting women's hair, while also giving us a great skull joke that gets a good laugh out of especially Lilith, who isn't used to these jokes, for its just scientific impossibility.
Yeah, the 2 of them are such a clash of different character types that it's really fun to watch them interact.
Yeah, they're either going to get along perfectly or she's going to be just sick of him for being a goon, like when he almost crashed the Sunny back on Egghead.
Yeah, no, she also picks apart all his jokes like Chopper loves to do sometimes, and it just devastates him.
Yeah.
But turning our attention back to what's actually happening, I thought this was a really cool detail, and not maybe something not all fans know about.
I didn't know about it.
I don't know if it came from an SBS or a question corner, but Oda has actually addressed who cuts hair on the crew, because they've been out there for like months at a time, and they seem to always have the same look.
Gotta stay fresh.
You gotta be fresh.
So he's mentioned that, yeah, Usopp and Sanji cut the boys' hair, and Robin usually cuts the girls' hair. But being as Usopp and Sanji are already on the island, and Robin's the one herself that needs a haircut, none of those people are actually present, so that does make sense why Brooke's kind of nervous, because he's like, oh, this is my first time doing this for another crewmate. But he seems like he nailed it. He seems like he did a good job. And everyone's really receiving it well. Bonnie, Jinbei, Frankie, and even Robin herself. She's like, it's perfect, thank you. And it's a really cute moment, honestly, as a crew, while we're being chased by giants and fighting different beasts and whatnot.
Yeah, and it really also just builds to like how excited she really is to finally see Saul again. And on the final page of the chapter, we get the reception of this new look from the rest of the giants on the ship as well, as they reveal the reason for the transformation is indeed to look the same as she did when she last saw her friend Saul, to really make like that wholesome coming back full picture moment.
Yeah, make it easier to recognize him too. It is also a kind of fun connection, and I think Frankie kind of alluded to this on the previous page where he's like, oh, this look really takes me back, but Oimo does confirm, yeah, this is also the same look you had when you met us on Ennis Lobby, where like she regained that desire to live. So I have a feeling this haircut honestly really means a lot to her.
Yeah. And as it turns out, the haircut was finished just in time, as the ship has finally emerged from the fog and is in the presence of the looming island of Elbaf. However, it wouldn't be a One Piece chapter if we didn't end on some sort of cliffhanger, and this one is certainly no different, as before Robin can even get to reconnect with her old friend that she's so excited for, we hear that Saul has seemed to have fallen and can't get up. So while it's unclear whether he was attacked, got sick, or something else unknown, something's very clearly wrong.
Absolutely. Although it is kind of funny to me because it reminds me of the Life Alert commercials where he's like, help, I've fallen and I can't get up. It's just Saul laying on the ground with his Life Alert button. But back to serious, we have made it through a whole chapter without Luffy freeing the Scourge of this island, so that is a win. But Loki is definitely determined to free himself by any means necessary, so will the rest of Luffy's crew and allies manage to meet them before then? That's kind of the question that's more up in the air right now. We'll just have to wait and see in the next chapter, and that won't be long as we don't have a break this week, so we'll be right here back with you guys next week as the next chapter releases to dive into that as well.
Until then, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe so you can see more of our videos in the future, and most important, don't forget, be crew!